I got some big news for you guys. We got some full patch notes finally for that PTR. So they actually went ahead and posted the real full patch notes, which I'll link in the description if you want to read yourself. But basically, there are some balance changes. It's not as extensive as last, monthly release, but there are changes that people are going to be happy about. Great Axe is getting nerfed. Warhammer is getting slightly nerfed. Ice Gauntlet's getting slightly buffed. The bow is getting nerfed. And I think Spear is getting buffed really hard. And that's some of the changes. But the biggest change, honestly, is not the balance changes. The biggest change is that they added new perks into the game. And some of these new perks are so OP, it's insane. Like, literally best in slot perks, hands down for some of these perks. You guys got to see these things. But let's go through these patch notes. I'll link it so you can read it yourself if you want to. I'm going to skip a lot of it, though, because a lot of it is our just rehashed information. I'm going to skip, go through all the things that are new that they added in the full notes. And I think there are some things, even in these full notes, that they did not document, as always. But this has a lot more for us, especially the balance changes and the new perks. All right, so here's what we're looking at. It is December PTR patch notes. It was 18 hours ago. They posted it. And it's basically the same thing, but there's a bunch more information in it. So all this is just how does the gypsum system work, the new time whatever shards, whatever they're called, and how certain points of interest got changed, little things like that. Nothing too crazy on that. Other than relocated Daisy the Dancing Bear and renamed and moved Morgulf. Oh no. Anyway, and then this is about the event, the holiday event, just more holiday event stuff. It's basically the same thing as before. There might be a teeny bit more information here, but nothing too crazy. Like they elaborate a little bit more that the quest line ranges are from 25 to 60. And that the exact number of quests for the additional territorial quests, the exact number of quests for the furniture quest line based on territory standing. And then they have like random notable fixes. None of these were too insane from what I read. Kind of like, other than this one, this is actually what I want to say. So they fixed an issue with players farming Captain Thorpe after clipping through Mirkgard Cathedral was not intended to be a combat target. So basically them not letting us do the end game of fighting Captain Thorpe is totally intentional, and they just don't have it designed. Apparently, well, I guess is like they just do not want us. They do not want us fighting Captain Thorpe, or unless that's the different Commander Thorpe. No, that's Mirkgard Cathedral. Yeah, that's the one. They do not want us going there. So I don't know. That wasn't like it's not a bug that the portals don't drop that stuff. They just have not finished it and don't want to give it to us. Is what my assumption is at this point. I mean, the game's been out for like 2.5 months. Come on. So it's definitely not even done, which is pathetic. But anyway, all right. So general AI fix is not important. Dungeon fixes, you can go read this yourself. I'm going to link it. It's just little fixes and nothing too crazy. I mean, maybe I missed something and didn't realize the importance of it, but it didn't seem too crazy. But the real big thing that we're getting to is combat changes. Now, this was already elaborated on. I'll kind of, talk about it just for a second. So the PvP damage formula update. There was a problem where low gear score armor is better than high gear score armor for raw damage absorption or something, and they fixed that. Crit damage is now, so bonus crit damage is added additively instead of multiplicatively, which makes it not do as much. And then buffer windows, some fixes with buffer window. But here's where we get to the balance changes finally, okay? So the rapier got buffed, so we have heavy attack, reduced recovery time by 5 frames, so heavy attacks, you can move again sooner, maybe even just attack faster, I'm not entirely sure. And then fixed an issue where the haste applied by the passive ability was applying at a shortened duration with each use, so that will make swiftness more effective. Basically, if you were in a long fight and swiftness kept proccing, it would give less and less every single time until eventually it's basically not even giving you haste anymore. As for the fire staff, nothing really changed other than Watch It Burn is a perk, and it got fixed. So it literally was not working before, and now it works. So that's good. So fire staff, basically a small buff, just because something that didn't work works now. Then with Warhammer, finally, at least some kind of nerf for the Warhammer. Path of Destiny, which is probably, quite arguably, the most OP Warhammer ability, especially in Wars. Seismic Waves reduced the hit stun from 30 frames to 10 frames. So you're going to feel the stun for significantly less time, which is a pretty important and noteworthy nerf to an ability that is insanely OP. So that's good. It's a start. This Warhammer's OP still, so that'll bring it a little bit more in check. We'll see how it all pans out. And then the bow got nerfed, mainly because the bleeding effect from rain over arrows can no longer be stacked by multiple players. I don't think they meant so much to nerf the bow as much as it was just to make it consistent with other AoE skills. They've made all the other AoE skills like that, so they wanted to do it to that too. And then the penetrating shot got a small nerf. It's not really that important, I think, if I'm reading this right. Basically what happens is there's an issue that was causing blood-soaked arrow to increase the damage with each hit instead of after. So it would make it so you would get your additional damage one shot sooner than you were supposed to get it. So this is going to decrease the DPS of blood-soaked arrow. If I'm reading this right, I am not a bow user, but that's what it sounds like they're saying. So it sounds like a very, very small nerf. Nothing too crazy, though. And then, you know, UI fixes, improved all aim-down sight transitions. So hopefully that'll make it feel more normal or whatever. And then also addressed issues with preventing penetrating shot and poison shot from being canceled after exiting the shot. Just kind of a quality of life fix. And then fixed an issue where damage increase would not cap for mark upgrade. So it'll now cap at 30% damage against enemy with debuff. So I don't know if that was, I guess apparently there was a bug and it would just keep on increasing the damage. Is that how people were hitting headshots for 8,000 damage? Because I feel like 8,000 damage headshots are not supposed to be physically possible, but I don't know. So if you were using that and that was a thing, then it's not going to work like that anymore. So the hatchet kind of saw a buff nerf, not sure. So aim throw, they increased the recovery time from 3 frames to 14. So you can't get out of it, you can't cancel out of it basically for a little bit longer, which I don't know if there was like a thing people were abusing or if that's just a nerf. I'm not sure, I'm not a hatchet user. But then heavy attacks got a buff because they reduced the recovery time by 5 frames for heavy attacks. Now I'm not entirely sure exactly how recovery time works and what they mean by recovery time, but either you attack faster or you can just dodge roll sooner. In either case, that's a nice buff if you ever use heavy attacks. Musket saw a slight buff, I'm trying to remember why. Fixed an issue where the musket would reload slower when stamina was depleted. So that, basically musket reloads a little bit faster if your stamina's out. This was like a visual fix. And then, so fixed an issue where the shoot animation was skipped, which unintentionally increased the musket's rate of fire. So that's kind of a nerf, but only because people, if anyone was like bug abusing basically. And then fixed an issue that caused musket's charged shot to not be expended while firing from the crouch position. So that's just fixed bugs. So really it's not so much a buff, but this is kind of a buff barely, and then this is nerfs if you were using any of these things, but they were just bugs that people maybe were abusing. Life staff didn't really see any real significant changes. Fixed an issue where the healing buff would persist on the caster after leaving the circle for beacon. So I guess a nerf only if that was actually applying, and this one's just updating a description. And then Ice Gauntlet saw a buff. So there's like different bug fixes and stuff, but there wasn't anything significant in all of this. But at the end, Ice Tomb, they increased Ice Tomb's health from 50 to 75% of the caster's health. And then Entombed Burst reduces the mana cost from 20 mana to 10 mana. So that's a nice quality of life change. I mean, mana's not that important in this game, but that's pretty nice. A lot of people use that ability, so that's a pretty nice buff. Better than nothing, you know. Sword and Shield saw a very, very tiny buff. Same kind of thing as the other ones, probably to keep it in line with the others. Heavy attack, reduced recovery time by 5 frames, so a very, very small buff. And then the Great Axe saw some pretty significant nerfs. All the dash abilities, including the Great Axe, saw this. I didn't even read on the other ones, but, you know, same for the Rapier and whatever. Fire Step, any of the dash abilities have this, which is the gravity. They've changed how gravity interacts with the dashes to stop people from using it to traverse up steep inclines. So that was not just Great Axe. All the dash abilities saw that, but Enduring Strike. So the grit windows for attacks empowered by this pass ability have had a consistency pass to make sure they only last until the end of the strike windows. So that sounds like a nerf to the duration of grit from Enduring Strike, but I'm not 100% sure. That's what it sounds like. Bloodlust got hard nerfed. They updated the description. Okay, so apparently it was always 15 meter range, and the description was wrong. The description said 10 meters, I thought, and maybe it said 20. I don't remember. Whatever. It says 15 though now, and that's apparently what it was the whole time. But the haste bonus from Bloodlust is reduced, so they can't chase you as easily as before. Instead of being a 30% increase to movement speed when they're chasing you, it's only 20% now. Also, light attacks and non-fully charged heavy attacks, they reduce the homing range detection from 4.5 meters to 3.5 meters, which will make it a little bit harder for them to do that thing where they latch onto you with their attacks and just fall, like keep on smacking you as like in a weird like stick-on kind of chase thing. It's kind of OP as hell, and that's one of the most annoying things. Base crit damage reduced from 40% to 30%. Is that just across the board? Literally, they just... Okay. So crits just do less damage from Great Axes by 10%. And then Reap, the damage on the initial pull reduced from 110% weapon damage to 70% weapon damage. So just a hard nerf on Reap. Reap's the one, if you aren't familiar with Greatxe, the one where they reach forward and grab you and pull you back into them. That's what Reap is, and it does damage when they do that, and damage got nerfed. Now, they haven't fixed the bug yet. If you get certain perks, then Reap does no damage, so my Reap does no damage. I'm too lazy to change my perks, but they haven't fixed that. But either way, Greatxe got pretty badly nerfed, like serious nerfs. And then Void Gauntlet got nerfed mainly out of bug fixes, other than this one. So, Putrefying Scream perk, they reduced the max percentage it could scale up to from 50% to 30%, so it can only do 30 instead of 50 now. Void Caller, they fixed an issue where you could where Void Caller passive could trigger with regular basic attacks, so now it won't anymore. Fixed an issue where Void Caller cooldown would reset when swapping weapons. So this one and this one, you could swap weapons and reset cooldowns. That's fixed. And then Orb of Decay, Detonating Orb. Fixed an issue where a detonating orb could trigger backstabs. So Orb of Decay was doing more damage than intended because of that. Now the Spear. Spear saw some pretty significant changes if you're using certain abilities that got changed. Buffs, specifically. They increased the hit shape, size, and homing on all thrust attacks. So it'll be easier to hit people, and it'll, like, you know, stick onto them from further away and whatever. Different angles, maybe. Skewer. If you use Skewer, they increase the lunge distance on Skewer by 50%. That's a pretty significant percentage increase. So if you're someone who uses Skewer, you just got buffed to hell with that. And Perforate, increased rotation speed during the ability. I'm not really familiar with it because I'm not a spear guy. I've never used one. Strong Conditioning, fixed an issue where Strong Conditioning buff could be canceled by using a Honing Stone. I am not familiar. Strong Conditioning no longer shows a text pop-up when triggered, which that's not really balanced so much. I mean, if you're abusing that, I guess it got nerfed, but this is some pretty significant buffs. And that's some things where you dodge repeatedly when in exhausted state from pressing buttons, and different little bugs like that have been fixed. And navigation, they got some fixes, different things, little things, legs look weird, and auto run makes you stop for a second and stuff. But then we got into perks. Now perks are where we see some pretty big stuff. First off, before we get to the new perks, let's get to gem perks. Exhilarate. They updated the description to clarify that the damage bonus applies when the gem owner's health is below the specified percentage. If you guys aren't familiar, there's two gems, and they both were very confusing because one was it does bonus damage when you are low on health, and one does bonus damage when the enemy is low on health. But the way they worded it made it very ambiguous. There we go. And it was confusing to a lot of people. They fixed the UI on that. But this one, Retaliate, though, Retaliate is the one where after you get hit however many times, you do bonus damage. I think how it works. They've changed it to better explain what it does, but the big thing is it got buffed like crazy. So apparently it said it increased your damage after getting hit however many times, but in reality it was only making you do bonus damage for one hit, which honestly kind of stinks compared to some of the other gems. But so on top of explaining on it now, they updated the UI so it tells you that. They also increased the number of hits that get that bonus from 1 to 3, so it got a buff actually. Keen Berserk fixed an issue where it wasn't displaying HP percentages. Then we get the additional perks, and here's where things get crazy. Some of these perks are absolutely insanely OP, like so OP. So these perks are so OP. Oh my god, some of these perks. First ones are the Gathering Efficiency. They increase speed for harvesting, skinning, mining, whatever by this amount, which I'm curious about because right now in the game, the card for Territory Standing that says Gathering Speed actually gives Gathering Yield. So there's a chance that these give Gathering Yield instead. Now, I don't know if this is going to be on a tool or if it's going to be on armor. They don't say what gear it goes on. But if this goes on armor and it gives Gathering Yield instead of speed, holy crap, dude. We're going to be able to stack up to like 300% or something of gatherings. I don't know. It's going to be insane. It's going to be a lot. 200% something. 200 something percent. It'd be insane. We'll still have to see what gear that goes on and if it actually gives speed or if it gives yield. Then we got Plagued Crits. Critical strikes against targets below 50% health inflict disease for 12 seconds, reducing healing effectiveness on the target by 10 to 40, so 40% at 600 gear score. Insanely OP. And the same thing for Plague Strike. Heavy attacks also reduce healing by 40% for 8 seconds. So this is some hardcore anti-heal that can now go on any class. Because it was like, okay, Void Gauntlet, it can be the anti-heal. But what if you don't have a Void Gauntlet guy? Well, you don't get any anti-heal, basically. I mean, there was one other way. I think Hatchet, they buffed some stuff. Now, anybody can get anti-heal. If you throw that mage AoE on the ground and it hits a crit, bam, anti-heal, in theory at least. We'll see if it actually works as intended. So that's a humongous change. That is some insanely powerful perks right there. Insanely powerful. These perks are so OP, guys. So OP, especially for war. So unbelievably OP. I don't know if they stack either. They probably don't. But if they stack it, that'll be insane. They'll probably nerf it eventually. Then we have some really interesting ones here. So we have thwarting, counter, and strike. So thwarting, counter. You deal 10 to 25% additional damage against targets with active grit. Now, what's really interesting about this is the skill cap. So what happens is, you know when you see a Warhammer guy jump into the air so he can slam back down and stun you? During that time, he has grit. So if you are really quick on your trigger finger and you hit that guy with a real powerful ability right when he does that, if you have this perk, it's going to do way more damage now, like significantly, 25% more. Now, I'm assuming this is on a weapon. If it was on armor, that'd be insane, 'cause you could stack it to 125%, so I bet this is on a weapon. But that's still really cool, especially if you're a ranged guy, because then when you see someone who's using an ability that gives them grit, you can, it's like a musket especially, because it's, hit scan. And you see a guy using an ability that gives them grit, and you immediately try to shoot him in the chest or the head, and you just do bonus 25% damage during that window. So that's huge skill cap thing. Insanely OP if you're really quick and good at PvP. Pretty cool. Then we got thwarting strikes, which is deal up to 12% additional damage while you have active grit, which is insane, and makes potentially Great Axe and Warhammer even stronger than they once were. If you're a Great Hammer or Warhammer Great Axe player, you're definitely going to want thwarting strikes on your weapons, especially Warhammer, because Warhammer gets a lot of abilities that do grit at the same time as doing damage. So that's OP. That's insanely good. You definitely want that on your weapon if you can. And then Trenchant Strikes. Fully charged heavy attacks deal up to 15% additional damage. Just straight up heavy attacks deal more damage. Now, I'm not a fan of using heavy attacks, but if you use heavy attacks a lot, that's pretty good. You just do more damage. Then we got, this one's going to be insane for mages, dude. Trenchant crits. Fully charged heavy attacks deal up to 20% additional crit damage. So if you stack that with a bunch of other stuff like the earrings for crit chance or crit damage and all these things, you might be able to get it to where it's like if you hit a crit on a fully charged heavy attack, you hit for like 9k damage or whatever. It's going to be insane. You definitely might want to consider getting that if you are a mage or whoever. If that applies to you, you know your builds. If that applies to you, insanely strong for certain builds. Then we got Trenchant Rend. Fully charged heavy attacks apply Rend for 7 seconds, reducing target's absorption by up to 15%. Now this is basically Tank Buster. So what you're going to do with this is fully charge your heavy attacks, hit a Warhammer guy, and now he takes 15% more damage for 12 seconds. So Giant Tank Buster, if you have this, it basically creates a Warhammer Great Axe nerf just by this existing, because that's really good to counter those guys. Anyone who's super heavy armor, void armor, whatever, void armor, whatever. We got Trenchant Recovery. Now this one's interesting, dude. This sounds like it could be OP, but we'll have to see how it works in practice, because sometimes they sound OP, but they're actually not OP. So Trenchant Recovery. Fully charged heavy attacks heal the player for 30% of the damage dealt? That sounds like if you throw that on a Great Axe, you are invincible. You throw on the Great Axe, and if you only swing heavy attacks... Dude, I've been hit by a Great Axe guy before, and he's just chopping me for 2k every hit, even though I have full physical heavy armor on. And I'm like, dude, that guy, he's hitting 2,000. He's going to be healing, what is 2,000 divided by 3? I can't, it's 600, basically. 660 or something. HP with every swing. That's insane. That is so much heal. You don't even need a life staff guy on him anymore. That's crazy. That has potential to be completely OP for tanks. So we'll have to see how it pans out, though. It might not be as good as it seems. We'll have to see. Then we have these ones, and these ones are the most OP out of everything. You thought, guys, so talking about this, and you're thinking, if you're sitting there watching this thinking, man, that's OP. Oh, well, that's even more OP. Oh, my God, that's OP. If you're feeling that at all about any of this, then you haven't seen anything yet, because these last ones are so insanely OP. It doesn't, why even get anything else? These are literally best in slot perks, hands down. So we got Physical Aversion and Elemental Aversion. You take 4% less damage from ranged physical light and heavy attacks. You take 4% less damage from ranged elemental light and heavy attacks. So, do you want to be immune to bows and muskets? Do you want to be immune to mages? Now, really, it might not actually be the best because it only applies to certain classes. But my goodness, if you get this, because you can get it on 5 pieces of gear, so you get 20% reduction, just flat damage reduction from those people. Now, it's actually not as OP as I hyped it up to be, though, because it's only for the light and heavy attacks, so abilities do not apply to this, and again, it's only for specific classes. But it sure feels OP. Probably won't actually be that OP. Maybe I might have hyped it up too much. And then Outpost Rush, fix some things. Miscellaneous, fix some things. And then talk about trade skill changes. There's not really any new information here, same stuff. They finally talked about the refining. If you haven't heard from my other videos, these refining recipes that let you refine 250 of a tier 5 raw material into one of the legendary. So 250 orichalcum ore turns into 1 tolvium now, and whatever. You do 10 a day of each. And then you can also craft orichalcum ingots with platinum, as well as star metal. And then a bunch of stuff about rewards. There was nothing too crazy here other than this. So they added tier 5 amulets, rings, and earrings drops from random, basically random level 60 plus named enemies can now drop rings, amulets, and earrings, which will help you get your watermark, aka expertise now, up faster. So that is going to be out on the release, and you'll be able to farm your expertise faster for those types of items because now random enemies can drop those actually. Other than that, though, there was nothing too crazy in here if I remember right. I read the whole thing. Fishing's got something going on. The Mad Tom fish now breaks down the Mad Tom toxins, which can be used in alchemy. Also, chance of fish will breakdown. So Mad Tom fish is now useful. Now, Mad Tom toxins, I don't know if that'll be worth much, though, because it's for alchemy, and there's not really any alchemy ingredients that are that valuable. So I don't really think it's going to do much for the price. I mean, I never see Mad Tom fish cheap anyway, but if you do, then you can buy them all. And then number of fishing armor items are now eligible to be bought and sold, which will help people get all 3 pieces of the fishing gear. And then there are notable bug fixes. So tier 2 faction health mana potions for Syndicate now match the other factions instead of Syndicate just getting screwed for no reason. Fix some chests. Fix issue with trading post taxes going to the wrong places. UI fixes. Social to UI fixes. Notable fixes. Nothing really notable here other than the Azoth cap warning only happens at thresholds instead of every single time you get an Azoth, so it's less spammy, which is nothing too crazy, but definitely nice. Nice quality of life. And that's pretty much everything I think. Other than this, maybe the compass is fixed. Fix a number of issues with the compass that should make it more reliable in switching game modes. So maybe the compass will stop breaking? Maybe? We'll have to see. It's just thrown in there randomly. I don't know. And then was there anything else? I don't think there's anything else, yeah. Okay, so that's that. That is all the changes. The most notable changes, as I said, are the perks. Like the balance changes, whatever. Greatxe nerf, we're like, hey, Greatxe nerf, cool. That's good. That's really good. But that news is nothing compared to this news. Some of these perks right here are just absolutely insane. Literally best in slot perks for some of these perks. Like, you guys know your classes. You know what ones you want. Not everybody's going to use the exact same perks as the next guy. But between you and your company and your squad, or just you, you'll know what you want, and you'll be way more powerful if you can get gear that has these perks. These perks are absolutely busted OP. So OP. Insane. Anti-heal meta is a thing. Healers are not meta anymore. Absolutely crazy. So I will link that in the description. I got kicked for AFK because this video took so long to record. Oh no. So there you go. That was pretty noteworthy stuff. I don't know, it was just kind of thrown in randomly. It wasn't really announced or anything. I want to make sure you guys were aware of it because they're just like, oh, by the way, here's some patch notes. Meanwhile, in those patch notes are some pretty game-changing things, like things we didn't even know about. Absolutely crazy game-changing things. So there you go. Those are the new perks. Those are the new balance changes. There are more changes than are in those notes, I know for a fact, so there's probably even more out there to discover than that because they are terrible at documenting changes in this game for whatever reason. But there you go. Those are the new perks. Those are the new balance changes. They're going to change the PvP landscape quite a bit. And maybe I'll have updates for you after it goes through on how it's changed the PvP landscape, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But there you go. Now you know. Now you know what to look forward to. You can start calculating all your builds and getting ready for the PvP changes in New World.